Hello, welcome fellow game makers. Today, continuing from last week actually, we're going to have a closer look at making the characters do more than shoot you. So we're going to have a play around with Lua, some scripting, some little hacks and cheats. I must confess I actually spent the last 6 minutes doing a little rehearsal because I think we're going into deep waters here. And I don't really want to take you all that way and then not show you with something good at the end of it. So I had a little bit of a play with my idea and it worked great. So now I can actually expand on my concept and explain it to you, which is basically this. We're going to make a game, simple game, not really a game actually, just an incident inside a game you might make, where you're trapped in, say, a prison and there's a prison guard and a locked door. Now, normally, you can do in Game Guru right now, you can just grab a key and you can unlock the door. Easily done. Very easy to do that. Because you just drop in a door, drop in a key, you pick up the key and then you plug into it and then voila. You've actually opened the door and you can get out. But what we're going to do, we're going to ask the player, so the character who's guarding the door is going to ask the player to find something, pick up an object or press a button, whatever it is. And then once you've done that task, you come back to the character acknowledges that you've done that assignment, and then he opens the door for you. So it's not going to be a key door system, it's going to be a little bit more scripted, where the character is going to make the door open. Never done this before, this is just off the top of my head, knowing that Lua is a powerful enough scripting language to be able to do all this. And I know a little bit about coding to actually chain all the logic together. So let's get started right away by launching Game Guru. The eminent, easiest to use game maker ever. Right now we're currently working on lots of improvements, specifically in the performance department, which we're already seeing some great results. And also, for my part, working on the graphics, the DirectX 11 conversion, which is looking absolutely sweet right now, and I'm going to keep it all generally hush-hush. However, if you know my dev blog, you can go there. It's off the main web page. If you go to the news, you'll see my dev blog, where I do show you a little sneak peek from time to time about the visuals that's happening. So, we're in here, a nice blank level. What we're going to do is just level out some area, and we're going to make a prison. So what we're going to do is create a wall. So let me find a suitable wall. Let's have a crumbly wall, so we'll use this one. And you've probably seen a few of these broadcasts now, and I tend to always pick the same walls, and there's lots and lots of walls to choose from. But I like the consistency of, you know, you're not shocked by the content, because you could sort of, oh right, that's what that is, and then move on, as it were. You don't really have to sort of ask any more questions. So you can focus on the stuff that I'm really demonstrating, which is hopefully unique. Now we're going to pick a door. We've got wire fence. Yes. Oh, we've got that's a single fence. Here we go. Gate. So that's zoom a little bit so we can see what we're doing. Rotate it a touch. The other direction, please. And line that up to there. And then we'll move this wall in, just to block off any possibility of escape. If we drop the start marker in now, and maybe put a guard in, which will be this guy. And let's see, we pop him here, just guarding the place, and so he doesn't start running around trying to shoot you. We're going to neuter him. We're going to put him to AI neutral, which means he won't be running around like a crazy person. And let's call this Quest 1. Yeah. Remember, save early, save often. So we'll test that, just to make sure that we can't escape our, in quotes, prison, and our character isn't going to run around trying to maul us with a pistol. So yeah, can't get away. Walls nice and high, can't jump over them. This guy, it's not shooting me, and the door we dropped in by default, you can open it. So not much of a prison, and that you can just open the door and walk out. So what we're going to do is reverse the door first, because it just went straight through that character. It's not very believable. And we want to make sure that you can't just walk out, which for me feels like custom script time. So if I click on this, I can do rotate, grab the y-axis and just spin it round. You notice this particular gate is not on its center axis. Sometimes you'll find assets like that. You think you can rotate it, but unless the artist has actually had the hindsight to center the mesh, then it's off center and it'll pivot around some other axis. But that's no problem, we can still do good. So just rotate that like so, and then position it there. So now when we open it, it will open outwards. But of course, it's using a particular script. It's using door.lure. And door.lure is quite simple. It means when you are near it and you press E, it opens. There's some other scripts that are already provided for you. Just look under the door. You've got door auto. Now, again, it's been a while since I played around with these scripts. Save early, save often. And I'm going to have a look at that script because I don't really know what it is. So the way you find all your scripts in Game Guru is go into the Files folder. You'll actually find it here, Steam Library, Steam Apps, Common, Game Guru, Files. Go to Script Bank, and then look at the same script that we chose, which was door.auto. Quite a bit of a script, pretty straightforward, just ifs and a few actions, but the pertinent things it looks like when the players can see the entity and it's not activated, then activate it. The overriding condition is when you're close enough and you're alive, i.e. you've got more than 0 health. So it looks like when you're close enough and the gate can see the player and the gate hasn't been activated in any way, looks like it's going to open it for me. So that's pretty cool. Let's just see what that does, just to confirm it actually does what we think it's going to do. With test game. Oh, and by the way, if you've got any questions about this, I also have a chat window open on another screen. So as you type chat comments, I can read them. So if you've got any worthy questions about this, Game Guru, or anything at all, in fact, post them and I'll be happy to answer them. And my resident moderator, Game Guru Rave, will also be happy to answer any questions in case I miss a few of them. And specifically, if you want for me to show you something as I'm actually creating this level, by all means just make a comment. I'd be quite happy to oblige. So let's see. Now we did say when you get closer than 100 units this gate should automatically trigger some animation. I presume it's open. Yes. So there you go, when you go away it closes. So I think what we want to do is make some customizations, i.e. we'll only really want the gate to open and then just leave it like that, and we only want the gate to open when this character gives you permission, i.e. this character is going to trigger that, and you're only going to need him to do that once you've actually done a little quest for him. So I suppose stage 1 is we're going to have the gate so it only opens and not closes, and by doing so create a custom script for our door. The easiest way to do that is go back to the folder I mentioned before, Script Bank. Just copy the script that's closest to the one you're interested in, so Control C, Control V, and then you can rename it. So it's a derivative of door auto, but we'll do underscore trigger. Yeah. Now notice what I'm doing, I'm copying the file name. This is extremely important because when I double click to edit it, the script functions themselves still say door auto. They have to be the exact name that the file is, with underscore in it, underscore main. So that's what I'm doing there, just making sure that this thing is going to work great. So now if I just went into my game, change the script on the gate to point to our new one, which is now ready and waiting, we can run it straight away. It's going to do the same thing, but we're not interested in the gate closing again. So if we go and have a look at our text file, you'll actually see the logic. If it's not activated, open it, animate it, set active to whatever's in the if used field, but I don't think we'll need that. If it's activated and the timer, which we started here, is greater than 1000, which means 1000 milliseconds, which means 1 second. So after 1 second, switch the collision off on the gate so you can leave. Then set the activation flag to 2. The activation flag is a value inside the gate entity. So it's like its own number that you can mess about with. So we set that to 2. And then it looks like the else here relates to when you're not closer than 100 units and your health is 0, in which case if your health is 0 or you're further away, then it's going to close this gate. So let's say you were standing at the gate and it was an auto gate and then someone shot you in the head and you died, the gate would close. That's kind of what it would do. So this else says if you have actually activated, which means you've switched the collision off, then set an animation to 1, set the play animation for whatever animation 1's going to do, set animating to 1, set activate to 0, which resets the activate flag to 0 so it starts again, so you can open the door again, plays a nice sound, which I presume is the closing gate, and then switch the collision back on, so the gate is a solid door again and you can't walk through it. So as we said, we don't want the closey bit, so we're just going to comment that out. So it's a good idea to comment stuff out when you're playing around with scripts. You never know when you want it back in, and you don't want to write it from scratch, so commenting is certainly a time saver. So now press test game. Excellent. So now we should be able to just walk closer. It should open the gate. But now when we backtrack, the code that would have closed it isn't working. And obviously things like that where the gate's going through the wall, you can basically just move the gate further outside and then it will just pass it. So that's just really about graphical placement. But we're all about scripts today. So now we've actually got the gate to open based on proximity. We don't really want that anymore. We want the gate to open based on some clever jiggery pokery. And the clever jiggery pokery in reference will be some global value, and I'll show you how to create a global value very soon. So let's see, what's the best way of doing this? Okay, so it's currently based on proximity. What if we said it wasn't based on proximity, it was based on somebody activating the gate, right? So it completely doesn't matter about proximity, which means we don't need the else and we don't need that if either. So it's just based on whether the gate can see the player and it's ready. But what if instead of 0, which is the default state, we said 1? And instead of 1, we, to set it to, it's actually starting to animate, we set that to 2. So when it's 2, we wait 1 second, and then when we're finished, we set it to 3. So basically we shoved all the flags up by 1. So by default, the gate starts with an activation flag of 0. And what that means is it won't do anything. Even when you walk up to it, it won't do anything. The only way it's going to do something is if somebody sets this gate activation flag to 1, which is what the character is going to do a little bit later, using something like this, activate if used, but run through the character's script, which is the very next thing I'm actually going to show. So the first thing I'll show is actually that this works. So I've saved the script. Very important you save the script. Rerun the level. And now, when we go up to the gate, it won't let us out. We have no ability to open this gate. Somebody else is going to have to activate it for us. The other somebody else we're going to talk about is this guy here. Hello, guy. And so we'll look at his script, and his script, as you remember, is AI neutral.lua. So we're going to modify this for our little quest engine. So again, you go back to the script bank, look for AI neutral, which is here. Again, copy and paste, and then we can modify it to, let's say, let's keep it consistent, let's say trigger again. So again, copy the file name, edit it. Very first thing you do is change the function names so they relate to the file. Save that and go into the game. You notice I'm doing these things pretty consistently because sometimes you'll forget to update the script and you wonder why your script's not working. It's because you actually didn't change the script in the entity. So there's the script we've just created. Apply changes, very important. Going to get rid of that in a future version. Save, also very important. So now we're kind of pretty confident that because we did everything right, it's now going to set the character up to an unarmed stance, and then when you get within 200 units, it's going to look at the player, which it did anyway. But we're going to do another thing now. We're going to activate that gate. So if we do activate if used and put it here, what that means is, in addition to looking at the player, it's going to send like an activation increment, which will set something from 0 and set it to 1. So it's going to activate what? Well, it's going to activate E. It's going to activate the entity that's specified with E, and that field is inside the character. So we've assigned the script, but if you look down, there's an if used field that's going to take the name of an entity. So if we set gate and click apply changes, and then set the name of this entity instead of all that rubbish, set it just to gate, nice and simple, make sure the spelling is absolutely identical, you can see what this command actually does now. Because you've set the gate to the name gate, and when this command gets called, it activates whatever the name is in the if used field, which we put in gate in the entity properties, in the enemy properties. So there you go. So you can see what's going to happen, I think. So if we run it, when we get within 200 units of the enemy, guard, whatever you want to call him, that gate should open. And fingers crossed, because programming is always a case of 90% experimentation. Now you might think, oh, that's not working, but listen, I don't know if you can hear that. It's constant zzz sound. It's constantly setting active to 1. Only when I leave that 200 unit field can it complete all its animation, because it was constantly starting the animation all the time. That's why it never actually did anything. So how do we do that? Well, we want to trigger it once, boom, and then quickly move on. How can you do that? Well, the enemy, the character itself, has an active flag as well. So we just reuse the state engine system that the door used, but for the character. So we just, rather than write out the code from scratch, which is really popular in my mind, I like to cut and paste because you've got less spelling errors for one. So after you've set the gate to activate, we set our own entity, enemy, to 1. But that's not going to work until we've added something which ensures it's only going to be called once. So if you're within distance and you're looking at the player, but you only ever want to call the activation of the gate once. So by wrapping it in if, only if the enemy or the character has never done this before, then send the signal to the gate to open. But once you've sent the signal, set its own flag to 1, and then this condition can never be true again. You see? So it will only actually be triggered once. So we'll try that. Another thing I'd like to do in a future version of Game Guru is tie the script editing straight into the game. So you don't need to keep going in and going out, going in and going out. You can basically just stay here, change the script, and it will actually change the game logic live. In addition to all the other features that we'll want in the future. So now when we get near enough, and voila, he only sends the signal once, the gate opens, doesn't close again, and we've achieved. Now, the problem is really, there's no quest. The quest is walk near enough to the character. We really want something really cool to do on this. So maybe it's something like, how about find me a packet of crisps because he's hungry. Yeah, that's nice and simple. And I'm going to show you a little trick. If I go into the character entity right now and do something like not only do you look at the player, there's a command called prompt local. Hello there, just for kicks. Save that and run it. What happens is it prints the text hello near where the entity is. That's what prompt local means. It means draw some text, you see, hello there. But most games usually have the text at the bottom of the screen with a bit of a fade out, or at very least have it at the top of the player, you know, like where they're speaking, but it's all fixed to the origin point of the entity, which is where the feet are in this case of characters. Here's a nice little trick you can use in order to change that. Obviously we're going to get rid of that hello there, because it's not great having it on the feet. And then what we're going to do is something I prepared earlier actually, but it's not too complicated. Go to markers, pick a light source, go to top down by pressing G, so you can actually locate the top of the head of the character, which is about there. And then we're going to go to free flight mode, zoom in, and pick our, we don't need that confusing us, pick our light, move it down to about there. Go to properties. Now normally it's light, so we'll set it to black to switch all the light off. But look, light 1.lower is actually a script. And we don't really want that. We want a script that's going to present some text to us. And because the origin of the light is on the top of the head, it will actually place the text on the top of the head, if you can see what I mean. And I actually prepared a script for this. This was the bit I was experimenting with before. I called it hover thing. So I'll show you the script code for that. So I've just applied changes. But before I run it, I just want to show you what this script actually contains. When you're within 200 units, text is here. So that's what it'll do. I'll just change this to something more relevant. I am hungry. Please find me some crisps. Please. Let's have a polite prison guard. Oh, he's done please twice. dot dot dot. Okay, we save that and then we run the test game. In theory, if you think about it, what's going to happen next? As soon as we get within 200 units of the light, then the text will appear where the light is. Now obviously as soon as you get near him, he's also activating the gate. It's kind of a bit premature. You only really want to open the gate once you've actually found in some scripts. He's going to find some scripts. Alright, we'll find him a script. Maybe there's something in our entity library. So first thing we really want to do is stop him opening that gate, because otherwise, you know, what prisoner's not going to try and escape. So we can activate the gate later. So that's going to stop the gate opening. Now we need to add some more to our level so you can actually find the script he wants. So let's keep it nice and simple. Go back to there, pick another bit of a wall, like a maze. So we'll put one in there and one in there. So we'll hide it somewhere in here. We'll give it a little bit of floor. Secret place, you see, a secret place. And then we're going to find something to collect. I'm going to say a crisp packet because that was my original one. I dare say there's pamphlets and stuff somewhere around here. Here we go, bits of paper, a map. Yeah, a map. No, I said script. So script's on this piece of paper. Zoom in. I could put it on the floor, make it dynamic so you can potentially pick it up. Let's put a table down. Let's sink that into the floor, that'd be pretty cool. So page down, we'll just sink any entity into the floor a little bit. Red means it's static, green means it's dynamic. And if we press return, it will find the top of there, so we can see it to collect it. Now, the next thing, if we click that, it was just a scenery item, so it's just default.lower, which means it does absolutely nothing. Just move it out of there a little bit. So we want it to have a script. This script is going to do several things. One, it's going to collect it, so it removes it from the game, and two, it's going to tell the character that you've collected the script, you see. I don't know why he wants a script as a result of him being hungry, but you know, this is for game narrative. It's for the narrative guy to figure out why all this makes sense. So if currently it's default, but we want to kind of collect it. So one way to do that is find an AI script that's close to a collection one. I like health because it does a few things. It gets rid of it. It makes a nice noise. We press save. We'll move this a little bit further away and then press test level. Right, I just read the comments. Script Eater. I think this could be a brilliant new game. Right, so there we go. When you get close enough to it, it picks it up, collected health. But we can, like you saw with the other ones, we can modify these scripts to do whatever we want. So we just got rid of it, and obviously we'll run to this guy. I'm hungry, please find me some scripts. And the quest isn't satisfied because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Let's have it so it makes a little bit more sense. Let's go back and find the health script. Again, Control-C, Control-V to copy it. But it's completely not health at all. So let's call it something clever like quest_item. Copy the file. And then Q. Edit that. Remember, first thing you do, change the function names. We're going to make all this a lot easier to add new scripts and change existing ones. Right now, you're pretty much in the bowls of script editing. And it says collected health. Now, we can actually say something to contribute to our game narrative. So, ... This looks like a great script to fill up on. Or something. Players assigned, doesn't need to add any player health, so we can get rid of that. Or my mantra, commented out. Look, activate if used. Aha! Now, basically, this could activate the soldier, but the soldier already used soldier is already using his activate flag in order to trigger the gate mechanism once. So there's one more thing you can do, and that's to set globals. And because you're in Lua, you can set globals anywhere you want. Now, I've never done this even back in the day when I was writing parts of this Lua system. So it's all going to be massively experimental. But what I can say is Lua has a very good sense of globals. So if I said, just to keep a nice naming convention, quest_item_ script collect, right? Script collect equals nothing. I don't know whether this is going to work. One way to know whether your syntax is correct, look at global.lua. It pretty much is a bible for globals, function calls, things coming in, things going out, arrays, everything you want. So already I've realised that naming convention wise, we don't need the semicolon, and we put some spaces in to make it all nice and neat. Now that's a global. So if we go to get rid of this activate and instead do equals 1, we've advanced the quest a little bit. So you've found the script, you've collected it, and now you've set this flag to 1. And of course, the magic is, how do we get this value read by a character who is going to, bide his time and then trigger the gate to open. So that's what this guy's doing, is setting activated, which will actually broadcast through the gate. But it's only when we actually no, it's this one, isn't it? Activate if used, which is currently negated. So we're going to have to do like an if condition, like if quest item script equals 1, which means we've collected the script. Then we can activate if used. Then we can set that to say I don't need to do that more than once. And in theory, that should work. Now, you notice I'm not declaring the global up there. So whether it's going to come back as an error, that's what we found out when we actually press test game. Yeah, so it's good that it did an error because I can show you how the Lua error system works. Then expected near active if used. So that's one error. So let's see if we can find the... So it was just one error. I always forget to put the then statements in scripts, especially when I'm writing my own stuff. Which is why I like to cut and paste, because it makes things nice and consistent. So now I've added the then. So that should be a successful condition. And it didn't complain about the global, so you didn't need to pre-declare it. Seems any global written and declared anywhere may be valid for every other script in your game. So first of all, we'll go to the guy. I'm hungry, please find me some scripts. Or maybe one script. So it's just going to keep saying that. Is it going to keep looking at me? Yeah. So now we're going to find our script, which is that. So collected health. So, golden rule. I've obviously not changed the script on this. So if we go to properties, see, still health. This would have been very confusing if that text wasn't changed. What did we call it? We call it something like quest item, so Q, quest item, apply changes, test game. Okay, here we go. So now we've got the new script, so it should say something different on the text. Looks like a great script to fill up on. Now I'm going to have that on the screen a bit longer. You can set the time. Now, in theory, when we walk it towards this guy, remember that condition where we said now that global is 1, then it can fire off an activation and open the gate. Which it certainly does. But he keeps saying, I am hungry, please find me some scripts. So you want him to change his words like, aha, that's the perfect thing, and then open the gate. So we can do that too, because now we have access to pretty much every script in the chain. From the door opening, we don't need that one anymore, close that one down. The door open trigger, the character, the thing that hovers above his head, and the quest item. So it's the hover above his head bit that is going to need augmenting. And because we've got this lovely new global, quest item script collected, then when that's set to 1, we know that you've actually achieved something. So if it's 0, say that. However, if it says, if it's 1, then you can say something different, like lovely. That's just the script I'm looking for. Exclamation mark to show his emotive state. Save that. Now, has anyone noticed the bug? Yeah, I always keep forgetting the thens. So save that, and then we can do test game. Hopefully one last time, and then everything's in place. We have a little quest system, all written in just over 30 minutes, using Lua script. So we go up to the guy. I'm hungry. Please find me some scripts. We run. Collect the script. This looks like a great script to fill up on. Run back to the guy. Lovely. That's just the script I'm looking for. And the gate opens, and we can escape. Hooray! So there you go. That's quite a lot of things actually crammed in. Lots of tricks about Lua. Putting the text above the character using a dummy entity. Using globals within Lua. Using activate flags. Either flags that they own or sending an activate flag to trigger another entity. So there's quite a bit of a grab bag here and lots of stuff that you can use to create more elaborate and complex scripts. The activate flag isn't just 0, 1 and 2, it can be any number you want that's positive. I think any negative number as well. So you've got a lot of play if you want to have a continuing saga. I mean, right now that script, that flag that we set was 1, but maybe when you get through, there's maybe a laser field you've got to switch off. So there's 3 batteries, and then when you press 3 buttons, it sets the quest value to 2. And then you can activate a flag which switches off some lasers, then you go through there, and so on and so forth. So there you go. There's a prison escape level, and of course, when you finish, always have a nice save. So I've just been glancing across at the questions. This is probably the first broadcast where there hasn't actually been any question marks. But that's not to say there isn't any questions. Got a question right at the bottom. How to create a story on screen with Lua? Do I need timers, and how to use? Well, there's a couple of little gadgets. There's obviously the text command that I've demonstrated. So you can just do prompt, which puts text at the bottom of the screen, or prompt local, which will actually place it wherever the entity is. So you can, but it's only 1 line of text. What else you can do is you can do voiceovers. So remember where you saw play sound 0 and play sound 1 in some of the let's look at the door trigger. You see where it says play sound? Well, it picks up the sound itself from the entity. So if we looked at the door script, and just go to properties, see these files down here, audio, metals, chain gate open, and chain gate. Those are WAV files. So you can actually have some narrative. You can have a character talking, so you'll record yourself going hello, blah 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 blah, and save that as a WAV file, and then specify it as sound 0 or sound 1, and then you can have your script trigger that sound. There's another way. I'll show you. I think it's at the bottom. Yeah, story zone. And what you can do, this is pretty cool, this was an addition, is stretch your area, so there's no way you can leave the prison without hitting this green zone. And then in the properties, look what you've got. You've got another audio, that means you can specify another WAV file, like, aha, I've escaped, and then you run for your life. But you've also got visual. Now what visual is, believe it or not, it's video. So you can actually trigger, apply changes, you can trigger video during the game as well. So if you wanted to record some cutscenes, or even record yourself playing a level of Game Guru, and then using that recording with some dubbed audio to progress the game story, then you can do that as well. So just to prove it all works, I'll save, of course, and then we'll see what happens. But yeah, timers is very cool. You can use it to sort of create a timeline, so you can actually have a sequence of events all chaining on after each other. We haven't got a timeline editor, but that's something we will be adding at some point when the community votes for it. But right now you have to use Lua, and I'll show you quickly how to use timers. So obviously we can't get to that, we have to do the whole quest. Fortunately, the whole quest entails collecting that and then running back to the character. So now when we open, we should trigger that video. Now, as you can see, this is Lee flirting about on a Segway. It has absolutely nothing to do with games or anything close to it. The reason I put something so ludicrous in is so you could change it immediately to something that was a bit more appropriate. Maybe way down the line we can actually have video creation inside Game Guru, like cutscenes that you can just script by just dragging things around and create a story zone and stuff like that. But that's for later. Right now you're just going to create your own WMV files and drop them in. To use timers, it's really, we kept it as simple as possible. You have a command called start timer, which imagine starts like a little, like a stopwatch. So it starts that, and at any time after you've called that command, you can do get timer. Each entity has its own timer, so essentially every entity can trigger off a timer, and then at any time you can do something. So for example, after 1000 milliseconds we switch the collision off, but there's no reason why. I'll just extend the metaphor a bit. Door auto. So what if, remember, after 1 second it sets the activate flag to 3. So if I set that to 3, the timer's still going, if you recall. So we can reset the timer by, as soon as it gets to 1 second and you've done all this and you've set activate, reset the timer. So it's like you've pressed the stopwatch off and then reset and you've started it again. But instead of 1 second, let's say 5 seconds. That's 5,000 milliseconds. And then what we do, what shall we do? After 5 seconds, maybe the door speaks. So prompt local E, which is basically going to put it where the gate is. Oh, what about, come on then, if you are escaping, ... So that's the door speaking to you. So let's see if that works. So we've got one timer which just opens the gate and then it switches the collision off after 1 second, but after 5 seconds with a new timer it's going to do that. And that's kind of how you're going to chain events together. And I like to reset the timer and set a new time because you don't have to create some accumulative values for all your things are going to happen in your sequence, because then if you want to change the length of a particular sequence you have to recalculate all the cumulative values that you've put in your script. So it's always good to reset the timer. So what are we doing? Okay, so we go and collect the script, come back to the character. Now watch what should happen. The gate should open, but then after 5 seconds the gate should start complaining. So we open the gate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Come on then, if you are escaping. So there you go. I've just created a narrative sequence, and you can press the left mouse button to stop that. Okay, so I think I saw another question. And yeah, there's lots of things I could talk about story and how to edit it, but those will give you some mechanics just to get started. And if there's any more questions, I'm quite happy to cover it in a future broadcast. and maybe go into some more details. There's also other things like putting graphics on the game itself. You can actually load in graphics and then render them to the screen, so you can have like really cool cutscenes where not just text but actual graphics as well. You can even have graphics with the text in it, so you can have nicely prepared and nicely visual text. But that's for another one. If you want to look at that, that will be HUD graphics. So if you request HUD graphics, I'll absolutely be fine to Twitch that next week. Got a question from Retro Game Bloke. Is there any plans to make the if used option run a Lua script? At the moment, that does not seem possible. Can you make another question after that? I'll answer this one. If to run a script, well, you can actually do that. There is no plans to have the if used run a script, an arbitrary script, but it's a really great idea. If we're working on some Lua features that the community have wanted after we've done the performance and visual work, I will sneak it in then. If someone reminds me, I'll have it so maybe if you do a special like a $sign or a hash, it actually means run the script rather than trigger off an active flag in a entity. But if you think about it, if you have a holding entity, like a dummy entity that holds onto a script that you want to trigger, and that script only triggers when you set activated to 1, then it's the same thing as launching the script itself, sort of. Little bloaty, a little hacky, but that's how you can do it right now. That's sort of your workaround. But yeah, if someone reminds me, then we'll do a special hacky protocol inside the if used field, or even add a new field, if used, and then run this script if you've activated something like that. We can discuss that as we get closer to implementing the technique. Got another question from Malboy9000. Can you make a spawn wave system like in Killing Floor, if you know that game? Rings a bell actually, Killing Floor. So I probably don't know what spawn wave system is, but let me guess. You get to a point like that big green area on my screen right now, and then 3 guys come around a corner and you kill them. And then once you get to like another zone, 5 more guys come around another corner and then you can kill them off, and then so on and so forth, so you get to the end of the level. That is absolutely possible, no problem at all. I've got a couple of minutes left. I think I've got about 10 minutes, and I was supposed to only kind of stick to half an hour, but what the hey. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer them. So let's say instead of triggering a video, which I'm sure we're all sick of now, Story and Zone is just going to trigger that. But let's say we wanted to trigger something cooler. What you could actually do, and this is pretty cool, instead of Story in Zone, change it to Player in Zone. That basically says if you've detected something, like the player going into this green zone, then activate whatever if used says. So if we said something like group 1, and you can imagine there'd be group 2 and group 3 for all your different spawn people, and then out behind a rock somewhere, let's go and let's add a rock. So we'll go to our scenery, nice big rock, like that. Oh, I hate that rock. Yeah, nicer rock. There you go. So, all innocent like, we're going to spawn some shotgun guys. Where's my shotgun guys? But we'll just drop one down, go into properties, see his name, just change it to group 1. But also, see what it says spawn at start? Say no. So it won't appear originally. And that's it. And then once you've configured that guy, you can extract, hold down shift, and let's say we'll have 3 of them in the first wave, and they're going to run around this path and get you as you try and escape. Just notice that pick the waypoint mode, move that, drag that way, this one this way. Okay, so you leave, and as soon as there's the player in zone script, which does if used, so it activates these guys. Just to confirm, player if zone actually is going to do what I think it's going to do. Look at player in zone script, as you can see, activate if used E, and we've obviously specified group 1, so that should trigger those 3 guys. If we move the rock slightly out of the way, let's go back to entity mode and move it a bit this way, you'll see them appear, just for the benefit of this level. Of course, when you spawn groups of enemies, they shouldn't just materialise out of nowhere. Have them running out of a building or from around a corner or something like that. I've been recently playing a game quite an old game I think now, called Saints Row 4, and they have some sort of materialization thing. They just spawn out of nowhere, but they have a really nice effect before you actually get to that bit. So that's something you can do by triggering and animating an entity at the same time, at the same location. So we've got to get out first, so we give the guy a nice tasty script. Now watch, as soon as we walk over the trigger zone, it spawns 3 guys. Obviously they can't see me right now. They've been born facing the wrong direction. But as soon as I get close enough, then I don't last 5 minutes. And there's your first wave. And you can do the same over and over. You can create another zone and another wave, just call them group 2, all the way to the end of your level. So hopefully that was intuitive. My god, a lot of questions all of a sudden. I thought I was on my own in this Twitch session today. Okay, so what have we got? A question. The question monster is here. Brace yourselves. This is from Oneros. Does Lua allow storing and modifying values affecting the player and or characters, health, speed, damage modifiers, that kind of stuff? Yeah, you can change a few things. If you go to the global.lua, that's all the things we support right now, and the ones you're interested in is the G_player stuff. So you can affect the position, the angle, the health of the player, how many lives the player's got, all this kind of good stuff. Unfortunately, they're pretty much one-directional. These are read-only globals. If you change this value, it won't change the character, the player. But what you do have are some player commands. If you just scroll down and have a good shufty, you'll see that you can do certain things to the player. Look, you can freeze the player and then unfreeze the player. You can change the player's health. And that's about it. So if you wanted any more commands in Lua to actually change these values that currently you can only read only, then let us know, and then when we do the Lua stuff, we'll add those in and make a huge glossary of all the things you've ever wanted to see. So yeah, speed of the player, change that dynamically. Damage modifiers were really cool when you have weapon upgrades, so then you can actually do it all in Lua. And we're moving a lot to Lua. There's a big plan on how we're going to externalise more of the hard-coded stuff, stick it on the Lua script so you can actually have at it. So that's really where we want to go. So you can totally modify the engine by the end of this year. My hope is, anyway. Okay, Retro Game Blow answered that too, which is great. Another question from GameSped 2015. Is it possible to show storylines on screen after pushing a button to show the next storyline with Lua? Yeah, again, you can use text. So once you read a global value in the Lua, you can pop up some text to say what you're going to do next in the game. Or I would probably do graphics. So you can have a nice little, the game pauses, you freeze the player, then you pop up some nice graphic for 5 seconds, which shows you where you were, where you're going, and maybe a little bit of voiceover and stuff like that, all possible through the script system. But yeah, we're really going to embellish that with a proper editor. Right now, you have to do it all in scripts, and not everyone really wants to use Lua scripts. So it's possible, but you're going to have to get your hands dirty with a bit of Lua. And Game Guru Rebe as mod is answering for me, which is great. I'll just repeat what he says. Game Guru says, you should cheat for now and spawn one vert object with a script attached, or spawn tiny object inside a building with a script attached. So yeah, that's another way. Creating your own model with just one vert would be an invisible entity, but it would still run the script in the background. Other ways, you can make the texture transparent, or the way I showed you is use a marker. You can attach a script to it, you can make the marker dynamic, but when the game runs, it hides the marker, so you don't have any geometry being rendered to the screen. So that's a nice way of doing it. So he goes on. Oh, and is there another question? Lovely. No, it isn't a question. Just remarking that Ravy didn't use hashtags and should be complimented for it. Alright, one last question I think before we run out of our allotted hour. This is from Malboy9000. Can you explain how the building editor will work? I think I know, but just to be sure. Yeah, if you saw the early versions of the construction kit and how we had a really great time doing those prototypes, but the problem was it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it became its entirely own editor. You went into a completely different mode and then edited with a whole new set of keys and a whole new set of controls. And we kind of felt like, you don't really want to use 15 different editors to create your one game. And so what we're thinking of doing, and we still need to do prototypes, it's very early days, and we'll only really have proper time to work on it when the community votes it up to the #1 spot, and then that's what we all work on as a team, as a unified team. But my gut feel is, right now in the editor, you've got something called snapping modes. So right now you can just place it willy-nilly, but if you press B, it goes to what's called a snap mode, and if you hold down shift, notice if it snaps the next wall to it, and if you press B again, it's a grid. So you've got one, then the next one's there. You see how it's gridded? Well, what I thought would be really cool is if you had prefabs, entire rooms, staircases, roof pieces, but they all click together intelligently well. So you could just drag in, say, a room, then drag in another room, and then attach a staircase, and then go up a level. You know, so you go up one level, then you can attach another story, and then maybe a roof, and then a fire escape. So it's time it takes to like do what I just did then. You've actually clicked together quite an impressive complex, impressive building. It all snaps together intelligently, so a door will make way into another area, so it will create a door for you automatically, because these are intelligent prefabs. They can configure where doors and windows should and shouldn't be. And the best thing is, artists will be producing these prefabs, so you won't have to build a building one brick at a time. You can build it one room at a time. Now these are composite. You can actually go in and edit how these look, because they're actually just made up of lots of individual entities, but the prefabs are composites that an artist has lovingly crafted and lighted, and so it looks really good. So when you drop in a room and then press test game, you're running into a really nice looking room. When you drop a staircase, it has handrails, it has little, you know, dirt marks on the corners and stuff, and little ambient occlusion touches here and there. So we figure that approach is better, because you can knock out buildings quickly, they'll look good, they'll play fast because they'll be pre-optimized for occlusion and for collision as well. So it's everything that you want with none of the hassle. You won't have to spend 3 hours creating one building. You can create 3 hours to create an entire city. So that's really where we're going with that thought process. But like I said, we won't start to know real facts until we start prototyping, and only when the community has voted it up to the top. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into the thought process, if not what the prototype might look like when we actually get around to doing it. So there it is. I have talked unwitted on for 54 minutes, which I think is pretty good timing. Hopefully you enjoyed and found this a little bit insightful, and if you're a Lua scripter, that you actually appreciated the fact that I covered it a little bit more detail and show you some things that you may not have known before. If you want to know more things about Game Guru and you want me to twitch about them next week, which is next Wednesday at 4 PM, by all means, there's a forum thread dedicated to that. Just find the last entry, read what other people have requested, and if you don't agree with them, then post your own. I read that forum every time I start the Twitch, so decide whether it's something I want to talk about or something the community wants to hear about. And as per usual, it's interactive and it's live, so if you want to say, right, Lee, stop what you're doing, I want you to show me such and such a feature on the editor, I totally will. But only when there's time, and we actually have run out of that. So until next Wednesday, it's been great fun. I hope it was educational, and I'll see you next time. So bye-bye.